What they're going through is traumatic and anxiety provoking and scary. And, it's a roller coaster ride of emotions and experiences.
Well, welcome to the show, Holly. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you in my new space. This is
It's
exciting.
Beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Convenient. You have a colleague in the building even, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, I'm really excited to learn more about Ronald McDonald House. But before we dive into that, I'd love to hear more about your story.
I'm Holly Buckendahl, CEO for Ronald McDonald House Charities of Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana. I am really fortunate, honestly. I have my dream job, as CEO for Ronald McDonald House Charities here in Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana. I'm a veteran in the not-for-profit space for nearly 30 years, and I've had this growing career really in families and children and healthcare. And, I've been with Ronald McDonald House Charities really for 14 years. And making that move to my dream job was really, as a working mom, I really wanted to make sure I was working a career and a job with purpose that my family and my kids could understand and get involved with. And I've just been so blessed to have that experience with a really strong charity.
And it's so good for your kids.
Yeah, it
to
is.
see and just your whole life of giving back is really impressive. I think.
Yeah, thanks.
Has that been very influential on them? Do they love to?
Yeah. Well, I always knew that they would know somebody who was sick.
Right.
And I wanted them to have some exposure to how they could be a good friend. And I remember my youngest, Ava, was 18 months old when I started with Ronald McDonald House Charities, and she ran right into a Ronald McDonald House, started playing with the toys and the kids, and I was like, yeah, this is it. And since then, they're 16 and 20 now, and so they've been on teen advisory boards and all kinds of activities, and really brought their friends into the mission as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's so good for kids to learn empathy.
Yeah,
and really understand. I was reading an article, getting ready to chat with you, and you were on a podcast and talking about meeting the patients and the children and the families where they are, that you can't prescribe what you think they need. And talk a little bit about that. I thought that was profound.
We really operate from what I would call a family-centered care perspective. And so how do we support families in being partners in the journey that they're on in healthcare with their medical providers? And then how do we support them, in empowering them, providing the social support, the amenities of a Ronald McDonald House, the therapeutic nature of being able to interact with other families that are going through similar things. But I think it's just really important to really, as you said, meet them where they're at. What they're going through is traumatic and anxiety provoking and scary. And, it's a roller coaster ride of emotions and experiences. Right. And we just want to make sure that we're with them on the ride, whatever that ride looks like, offering support the best way we can.
So Ed Long has been a part of Ronald McDonald for a few years now. We have a room at Lurie's Children's Hospital. And I got to tell you, I know I've told you this before, but the letters that we get from the families just give you chills.
Yeah.
And we put those on our internal Salesforce or social media type of intranet at Ed Long so everybody can see, because it's about all of us really contributing to that. And then COVID hit, and we still really want to make our way there and do some team building. And I think that's a great opportunity for people that are listening to know there's so many ways that you can contribute to Ronald McDonald
Absolutely.
House.
Well, and thank you for your support. Families know that's the kindness of strangers that are really paying it forward and helping them through these times. And, I always say it started with a family.
Right.
Started with somebody.
And I think that's a great
kid.
segue, lady. Well done. So let's talk about, and I want to talk about COVID too, so let's not lose that thought. But before we go there, I would love you to explain, because it was new to me, the founding and the beginning of Ronald McDonald House. It's a really great story. So share that with us.
Absolutely. So, I mean, here in Chicagoland, we're 45 years old this year. So this is in 2022, our 45th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it really started with the first Ronald McDonald House in Philadelphia, with a family that had a child that was sick, Fred and Fred Hill, and
a football player to boot.
Yeah, bring in the NFL, right?
Right. I mean, that's like use your power for good, you know?
Right. A young family. Kim was sick, and they, Dr. Audrey Evans was their oncologist working with them, and they knew that they needed to help support families going through this. And so as the story is told, families were, sleeping in the waiting rooms.
Right. And you think of that as like an NFL player and his daughter going through leukemia treatments, I believe it was, for 3 years, sleeping on benches, eating out of a vending machine and going, this is not right. And making that change, that's powerful.
Well, they were exhausted, right? And they needed the support. And so, so grateful, for the foresight of Dr. Evans and the Hill family, and then the network of people that they brought around them with the Philadelphia Eagles football team and McDonald's to really do something about that. And so the first Ronald McDonald House, opened, 48 years ago in Philadelphia, and then the Chicago area got wind of it because there was another family and who had a sick child.
And you say it's a very unique model, which it really is.
It really is. I mean, we have this incredible partnership, founding mission partner in McDonald's Corporation that has really allowed us to grow and build, into a worldwide charity in 60 countries around the world. And so it is truly amazing.
And 1974 doesn't feel that long ago. I mean, I am old and all, but
it does not.
It feels like a blink of an eye.
It does not.
To the growth and to the many different families that you guys have served over those years is really incredible. So you got to talk about, what McDonald's did and how they got the funds to start the first one and the Chicago one.
Right. I mean, the first one started with the partnership and the sale of Shamrock Shakes.
Yes, which we love.
I know. Who doesn't like a Shamrock Shake in March, right?
Exactly. It's like iconic.
Exactly. So it was really a great venture. Ray Kroc and the team at McDonald's said, yeah, we'll help them. They partnered with the Eagles and they came together and sold shakes and were able to provide the money.
Did they say all the proceeds from this or all the profit goes to Ron? That's
right.
What a simple yet impactful idea.
And what a great way to engage the community. Yeah. And so it became the community's charity, right? Yes. That you could lean into and support. And then Chicago was next on the docket, and getting wind of what they were doing there. We too had a shake sale here in Chicago, but at the time it was the Arctic Orange Shakes that we partnered with the Chicago Bears and McDonald's once again to really help us open up the first, which was the second in the world, Ronald McDonald House.
Is in Chicago.
Is in Chicago. And it really...
See, this history I did not know, and I hope our listeners are enjoying this because I think it's
amazing.
It's a really compelling story.
Yeah. I mean, it really launched and solidified what became a very quickly growing organization around the world. And so I always love to tell a story of our founder, Charlie Marino, and his wife, Gay, that traveled with Dr. Baum, who was a local oncologist here at Lurie Children's Memorial at the time, that within the first 10 years after opening this Ronald McDonald House here, they were all getting so many calls about, we've heard what you're doing. We want to do this within our pediatric landscape as well. And within the first 10 years, they helped open 100 Ronald McDonald houses.
Wow.
With Denver being number 3, Atlanta being number 4. So it really became a movement. And McDonald's as a company said, we're in. We're all in.
Yes. It's great for them too.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
So Holly, for our listeners, can you tell us about the Ronald McDonald House Charities and what they offer to the families?
Absolutely. And as I've said, it's been this evolving organization over the years. So Ronald McDonald House Charities today offers 3 core programs. programs, our Ronald McDonald houses, our Ronald McDonald family rooms, and we also do mobile medical services in the community through partnerships with hospitals. And so when often people know who we are, but they don't know what we do. So when you think about a Ronald McDonald House in particular, it is your home away from home. It is where, you're traveling to a place where you're needing to be for pediatric critical care, and you have now an ability to stay in a home that provides all the amenities that you need. You don't need to pay for anything, from the place you're going to sleep, what you'll eat, how you'll do your laundry, how you'll check stay up to date at work if you need to through our business spaces. And so it's really just imagine what you do in your own home, but we do on a much larger scale for so many families that need to be close to their hospitalized child. When we think of our Ronald McDonald family rooms, those are small programs inside hospitals where we might have bedrooms and respite space where families can step off of an intensive care unit and take a break away from bedside. And then our care mobiles, where we're doing our part in the pediatric community to make sure that kids who might otherwise go without access to pediatric care, whether that be dental or healthcare, that they get access. So here in Chicagoland, for instance, we partner with the Chicago public school systems, and we do a lot of early detection health screening, a lot of immunizations, and we do that in partnership with Advocate Children's Hospital.
That's a great idea.
I hope that's a little bit about helping listeners understand, and they can get involved with any of that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a good segue to when we had chatted before, and you were talking about when COVID hit and the stress and pressure on Ronald McDonald House Charities because you leaned so much on the volunteers. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about that. And I think that's perfect into how our listeners could engage.
Yeah. Well, we are a small but mighty staff of 80, and we have 6 Ronald McDonald houses in the Chicagoland area, 3 of those family rooms, and 2 mobile medical units, and thousands of volunteers. We are still at our core a volunteer-driven organization, much like our founders 45 years ago and how we got started. And so COVID was brutal.
Right.
We remained open. We are very important to the infrastructure of our pediatric, hospitals. And quite frankly, kids were still hospitalized. Kids were still sick. Families still needed us. So we remained open. But what it really did was force a temporary new way of doing business, which meant, we had to discontinue our volunteer services. We had to discontinue the way we gathered for meals and therapeutic support activities. And it was a sad time.
Right.
I mean, it really was. However, families were incredibly grateful that we were there for them, because you and I both know it was a long journey, and it was an unpredictably scary one on so many levels. And so we are at a rally cry now, to get everybody back to help us deliver mission. And that means the volunteers. I mean, we need volunteers back to help us greet families, run our front desk, help with cooking and baking and fix-it projects. I always say, too.
Fix-it projects.
Like, it's great. We have handy men and women that come in and do nothing but help us, change light bulbs and fix things. And, it takes a village.
It does.
And you really can
to run a
learn.
house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's running a house.
Right. I mean, we have 172 families that we house every single night across the Chicagoland area.
That's huge.
And you can bring your talents into the mix. And you can bring your talents into the mix even if you do them at home.
Right.
Give you a great example. We have some women that knit blankets and make quilts. And those are all things that are donations that get dropped off that they're doing at home that they can bring into provide comfort. Yeah. So it's like I say, the sky's the limit, really, on some of the things that you think are your personal talents and skills. But, food is a very important thing, to make sure that these families are nourished. And so I know that your team is coming in to make meals for families and working.
How fulfilling and purposeful to do that. And I wondered, how often do you have to turn families away? That must be really hard for you.
Yeah. We try to keep pace with our growth with what our pediatric hospital partners are doing in the Chicagoland area. And that does mean that has created a need for growth over the years. So yes, we do turn families away. We try to evolve our programs. For instance, we have our Ronald McDonald House near Lurie Children's is now 80 bedrooms as of last year. But, 10 years ago when we opened, it was 62 bedrooms. Mm-hmm. So it's what we continue to do, investing in the real estate and making sure that we can grow to meet the demand for our services. We're good at what we do. We are very core to mission on how we help families, and we want to be there for them every time. So, it
would be great not to have to turn any families away.
But it would be great, but it happens sometimes. Now, we work with hospital social workers and nurses to do interim sorts of plans with hotel partners.
Nice.
We try to work it out to try to get them in, but it can sometimes be a challenge.
I was thinking about your background in social work, and you were saying sometimes it's just a matter of getting on the floor with some kids and just playing with them, or even the silence. Yeah. So I imagine you tap into that background a lot.
I do. It's really been a great career academic sort of background for me in the child welfare space. And I was just always drawn to what I would call the helping profession, but also leaning into being a strategic leader to solve problems. Mm-hmm. And I think that my career in social work has really taught me a lot about, the journey in mental health and struggles as I've got, some of my clinical experience in that space, the social determinants to health and why some have access and some don't, and, how education matters, parts of the world you live in. And so I was just always drawn to that advocacy work and what I could do, as a human.
Right, as a human and making a difference.
And my parents will always say, we always knew she was going to be a social worker because she'd sit on the front porch and her friends would come over and, they'd talk through their boyfriend problems with her, whatever. And so I was like, oh my gosh, okay, well, here I am.
I was always the mediator, it felt like, of my friends. If there was ever, I could see both sides.
Right, exactly, right? How can I help?
Yes. And my mom is a Jungian psychologist. So
wow, yeah.
Definitely grew up with with a lot of that, which is awesome. And that gets kind of more into the subconscious and some really cool dream work stuff.
Yeah, completely. So it's really been, for me, it's been a great match, for the work that I'm able to do.
And where do you think Ronald McDonald House is going?
Yeah.
As far as, especially in this mental health crisis that we're in, I think there's probably some impact you guys could have there too.
Yeah, we are really evolving, as we always have, evolving to meet whatever the needs are that families have and present. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad you bring up the challenges with mental health because, people come to live with us at a Ronald McDonald House or a family room, and they bring with them, all of the psychosocial challenges, the economic challenges, the stresses,
family baggage,
health issues, all of that, right? They live with us.
Right.
And when you think about, if mental health issues have been prevalent and then you have a child who is sick and hospitalized and they're fighting for their lives, it exasperates what else is going on from a mental health perspective. So we're really leaning into how do we support families while they're living with us? And then how do we make sure they have additional support when they go home? So how do we work with our hospital partners? How do we really lean into those needs? And, I think of things like I had a mom told me once just the PTSD side of this.
I bet.
Right. Like I remember the story that hit me so profoundly that she had a baby in the NICU and that her daughter had been in there, for months. And she talked purely about the PTSD of the smell of the sheets and the beeping machines and how that would trigger her, and just the struggles of quieting, those triggers was rough. So we're, trying to think about that work. Even, we have a very large population of NICU families that we're taking care of, and so how do we think about some of the support they need, as well as our cardiac patients, our oncology patients that we take care of. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
I love that because my brother-in-law had a massive heart attack many years ago, and he's fine now. but he was literally in a coma for 40 days. And my sister, of course, had 4 kids. Her youngest daughter was very young, like 2, and totally PTSD. And my mom felt like she had PTSD from it too. She's like, I feel, and at that time my mom was older, 75, I'm guessing, but she's like, I feel like the gas pedal is on.
Yeah.
And she couldn't turn it off.
Yeah.
And I think that's excellent work because
Yeah.
you do have images. My mom's partner passed away when I was just graduated from college, and he had a stroke, and they had to remove part of his skull.
Wow.
And they always had a cap on him, not most of the time. But it was haunting.
Yeah.
And I had my first job in Muncie, and I was with him when he passed, which was really very peaceful, quite frankly. And I think he did that by design because I needed to be there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But
He
going home, I was like, I had to keep my TV on. I couldn't sleep because I just kept thinking of that scene that was just so graphic to me.
Yes.
So I love that you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
I think that's.
I mean, we're meeting families where they are, which is where we
Exactly.
started this conversation. And so that
and
means,
you think
what do
you're
we do?
over the medical, but then you're like, the visual, especially if you're a visual person, sticks with you.
And many of these families that, children that are sick, and these families, it's a lifelong journey, honestly, for many. I mean, 40% of the families we serve are repeat families that we get to know over the years, from the times they were babies to when they graduate from high school, you know? So we get to see lots of great things, but childhood illness does not end always with, being hospitalized. I mean,
And you're healed.
You're healed. I mean, what are the things that you have to continue to do to manage a chronic illness or have routine medical care to make sure that you stay healthy and well? So,
And I think of the system of a family. I have 5 boys. And what's that saying? You're only as happy as your saddest child. And so one child will have something going on. One might have just had a baby, for example.
yeah, I know. Congratulations.
But I think that, as I'm very excited, but that affects the whole system.
It does.
So if you have a child that needs medical care and so much and so intensively, there's other children that are feeling like, what about me?
It's true. Dr. Audrey Evans, that founder of that first Ronald McDonald House in Philadelphia, said, when a child is sick, the family is sick.
Right.
And we really have kept that at our core from a mission perspective. So we operate from Audrey's belief system that how do we look at that whole family unit and system to provide support for everybody where we can.
Because, everyone has their role.
They do.
The scapegoat, though,
They do. I do. And as you can imagine, in the summer, our Ronald McDonald houses are full of siblings because school's out.
Right.
And so where do they go? They come with their parents and they live at the Ronald McDonald House. And so we even try to think about programming.
That's fantastic. But that's the part that brings the community. And I think that's the best part of the model is you've got the community.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So lovely conversation.
No.
So I have one thought is advice on how to create a sustainable philanthropy. So we have chatted about, I'm on a board of Female Strong, and it's not just dinner, which is a more WeBank focused, but it's a challenge to not be, as I think you said, on the hamster wheel of funding, but it's a worthwhile cause. So Female Strong is for young women, 6th grade to seniors in high school.
Yeah.
Trying to help them become entrepreneurial, really giving them a sanctuary of confidence, because that's when it drops. But it's a challenge. It's a labor of love.
Yeah.
And it's so important. And we have volunteers as well. So as you were talking, how to really best manage that and any words of wisdom, because I'm sure there's many people out there starting charitable organizations that would learn from you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, no money, no mission.
Right.
And so, that's the truth.
Wait, we got to put that on our wall.
No money, no mission. Yeah,
Yes.
That's the reality. And I think that, it's about inspiring, the donor base and the community about why they should care and how they can get involved. And I often say that some of the best philanthropic engagements are really people that can engage, with their, well, you hear this all the time, their time, talent, and treasure, right? They can engage through volunteerism, that can lend their expertise, and that can also give
Mentorship
philanthropically.
sometime.
Absolutely.
It's so many ways. I agree.
Yeah. And, we're, we're fortunate to have such a great brand partner in McDonald's where we're able to really raise awareness and do a lot through McDonald's facilitated giving with our local McDonald owner operators. So, in the Chicagoland region, we have 80 plus McDonald owner operators who own 480 restaurants. And so I always say a good place to give is when you're going, to McDonald's, drop your change in that box.
I was thinking about that when you were saying that, but nobody uses cash anymore.
Well, you can round up now.
You can round up. That's brilliant.
And you can round up on the app. You can round up in the restaurant. You can do it at the window when you're paying with your credit card and using your Apple Pay. And so, we're great to have that partnership with McDonald's. It gives us I would call it a great asset in real estate. And of course, they do many other things too, with other food and beverage items that help support our mission. And then we're working in our local communities, with foundations and companies, like yours that want to do good and want to, going back to that team building, how can we give and how can we also get our team involved? And so I think that we're a great place for that. And we need your help.
Right.
So, it's, you have to be passionate about the mission, committed to the work, and really understand that, the philanthropic cultivation inside of this, finding good mission partners are just essential to the...
Thinking about that, I shared with you when we chatted about first getting out of school and my first job and the company that I worked for really kind of pushed one particular philanthropic organization. It almost felt cult-like to me in a bad way that they were like, you're making $25,000 when you graduated back in those days and barely could pay my rent. And, but how would you describe to listeners how to figure out your charity of choice? What should they look for? Obviously, it has to touch your heart, but what beyond that would you advise people?
Yeah, I think people have to find what resonates with them, right? And really lean into that. I always say too, maybe listen and lean in what your friends are doing and get curious. Like I love a good book that a friend recommends, right?
Exactly.
I love to read it because they care about it. And sometimes I think, friends introducing friends, is a good way. So I always say, pay attention to what your friends are doing and be curious. Right. I think that if you have something you're passionate about, you should lean into it. There are thousands of charities that are doing great work.
It's almost overwhelming.
It can be.
That's, I think, what's so hard. And you want to make your contribution make a difference. And I think that's really wise that McDonald's picked this horse to ride because it's so hugely impactful. The growth, it's focus. It was focused for them on what they believed in. And I think as a person that likes to give back, it's like sometimes it's like exactly there's just too much and how to make that impact.
Well, and I think you want to see that your dollars and your time are being impactful, right? And so I sleep well at night knowing that the dollars we raise really go right back into the families we serve and go into our assets of all of our programs of which mission, is being delivered.
Guys, I think I can't remember what it's called, but I think that's profound because looking and seeing where the money goes, some charities might have, 30% admin costs. Some have, I don't know what the range is, but almost like a scorecard. There's a place you can go kind of look at that.
Charity Navigator.
Charity Navigator, that's it.
Right, and you have to be smart businesses too, right? Not-for-profits have overhead costs. We could not run and operate without
they have to have
a finance director.
And,
so you have to have some of that. And so I think that
the infrastructure, and I think back to our Female Strong situation, it's like you said, no money, no mission, which is hysterical. But you got to have the money in order to hire that finance director, or it's chicken and the egg.
Right. You have to have it. Just like a good business, you have to have infrastructure.
Right.
If you're going to grow your business, if you're going to be, very cognizant of your spending patterns and what you need, and as family needs evolve, how do we build more mental health programming services and what would that cost? Who do we partner with? How do we make that happen? So I think it's about being good stewards of the resources that our donors give us and making sure you're understanding our scorecard, where the money's going, and that you can see the impact. It's not a mystery. It's transparent.
Right. It should be.
I think that's what's important.
Key.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Miss Holly.
Yeah.
what is the legacy that you would like to leave behind?
Oh my gosh. I know this is going to sound so simple, but I want to know that I've made a difference.
Well, I think you certainly have.
I
have
do.
No doubt in my
And
mind.
it's like the legacy of blending my world of my family and my professional life, that I'm doing everything that I enjoyed, through my career and my family and in my community.
Yes.
And being passionate about things you care about, I think feeds your soul and really makes you effective as a leader and just as a human. So that's kind of what I think about.
And it lights you up from the inside. And you
Lights me up.
definitely are very passionate about this. And I've always enjoyed talking to you about this. And you're the perfect person to be doing what you're doing.
Gosh, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk more about that, and in being a great partner to Ronald McDonald House Charities of Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana.
Our pleasure. It really is. And you're so right that when we signed up, it's the the chain effect of who you know. So it started with Griffith saying you really need to learn more about this.
Yeah.
And one person can change the world.
Yeah.
And really.
Yeah. I'll never forget the first time I had lunch with you.
Yes.
It was our
so
introduction
fun.
years ago.
Yes.
And, you've just done so much to impact the families that are serving. And you've seen it in the letters they write you as a sponsor of one of our Ronald McDonald House bedrooms inside.
That is the best thing ever when we get those. It's just, you feel like.
Yeah, they're grateful.
Just happy that you could do something to help ease some of that pain because it's got to be
It's rough. It's rough.
intolerable.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for coming, Holly. It's been really great conversation, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
I really appreciate the opportunity and really sharing more about our mission and how we're helping families.